everyone, Sarah here. Rewind Justice brings you revenge stories that will blow your mind. If you're ready, hit subscribe and let's go.
The entire table erupted in laughter. My sister Victoria stood at the head of our parents' dining room, wine glass raised, delivering what she clearly thought was a toast but sounded more like a roast. To my little sister Emma, she continued, her voice dripping with condescension, who still thinks a savings account is an investment strategy. More laughter. Uncle Richard actually slapped the table. Aunt Carol dabbed at her eyes, wheezing with amusement. I sat quietly, fork in hand, watching my untouched turkey get cold. Mom beamed at Victoria like she just won a Nobel Prize. "Honey, tell everyone about the Series C funding." Victoria preened. "Well, since you asked, NextGen Solutions just closed a $47 million Series C round. We're projecting $200 million in revenue next year." She paused for effect. "I'm being featured in Forbes 30 Under 30 next month." The table burst into applause. Meanwhile, Dad chimed in, looking at me with barely disguised disappointment. "Emma works in, what is it again? Data entry. Financial analysis," I corrected quietly. Victoria laughed. "Same thing basically. Entry level forever." She turned to her fiancé, Bradley, who sat beside her wearing a designer suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. "Can you imagine? She's 32 and still renting." Bradley smirked. "Couldn't be me." I took a sip of water. Said nothing. "You know what your problem is, Emma?" Victoria leaned forward, her diamond bracelet catching the chandelier light. "You're afraid to take risks. You'll never build wealth by playing it safe." "Victoria's right," Mom added, cutting her turkey with surgical precision. "You should ask her for advice. Maybe she could help you invest that little nest egg you have." I smiled politely. "That's kind, but I'm fine." "Fine." Victoria laughed. "Emma, fine doesn't build empires. Fine is why you're still living in that shoebox apartment while I just bought a penthouse in Tribeca." My phone buzzed. A text from my investment manager. "Market's looking good. Your Q4 returns are exceptional. Call when you can." I silenced it. The thing is, nobody in my family had ever actually asked what I did. They'd decided years ago that I was the disappointing one, the safe one, the one who would never amount to much. And I'd let them believe it. Started 12 years ago when Victoria launched her first startup. She was 25, fresh out of business school, full of big ideas and bigger ego. The company failed spectacularly within 18 months, burning through $500,000 of our parents' money. But failure in our family was acceptable if you failed big and talked bigger. Victoria spun the story. Market timing, bad partners, lessons learned. She was already planning her next venture before the bankruptcy papers were filed. I was 20, working my first job at a financial analysis firm. I made $42,000 a year and lived in a studio apartment with a roommate. I listened to Victoria's pitch for her second company over dinner one night. Some kind of social media analytics tool that already had 17 competitors. "This is the one, Emma," she'd said, eyes bright with conviction. "I just need $50,000 to get started. Mom and Dad are tapped out from the last venture. Could you help?" I'd looked at her business plan. It was ambitious but fundamentally flawed. The market was saturated. Her competitive advantage was weak. The financial projections were, generously speaking, optimistic. "I don't think I can," I'd said carefully. She'd never forgiven me. The second company lasted 2 years and also failed, though it took $800,000 of Uncle Richard's money with it. Again Victoria emerged unscathed, already talking about company number 3. By then I was 26 and making different choices. I'd been living well below my means, investing aggressively, learning everything I could about wealth building. Not the flashy kind, the quiet, compounding kind. Real estate investment trust. Index funds. Municipal bonds. A small venture capital fund that focused on actually viable tech companies. I'd turned my $42,000 salary into a $340,000 portfolio in 6 years. Nothing spectacular. Nothing worth bragging about. Just consistent, disciplined investing while living in that same studio apartment and driving a 2004 Honda Civic. When Victoria launched NextGen Solutions at 29, she'd already learned how to pitch investors properly. She'd found a technical co-founder, assembled a competent team, and identified a genuine market gap in B2B software analytics. For the first time, one of her ideas actually made sense. She raised $2.8 million in seed funding from a venture capital firm in Boston. 6 months later, she needed more. The VCs were interested but wanted to see broader investor support first. That's when Marcus Chin reached out to me. Marcus was a managing partner at Redwood Ventures, one of the firms I'd invested with years earlier. I'd built a relationship with him through several successful investments, and he'd started bringing me into deals as a silent partner. Someone who could write significant checks but preferred to stay out of the spotlight. "I've got an interesting opportunity," Marcus had said over coffee. B2B analytics startup called NextGen Solutions. Founder is sharp, product is solid, early traction looks promising. We're putting together a Series A round. Interested? He'd sent me the pitch deck. The founder's name was Victoria Harrison. My sister had no idea I used my middle name, Monroe, for all my investments. On paper, I was E. Monroe, a private investor affiliated with Redwood Ventures. Victoria had never made the connection. I'd spent 2 weeks analyzing every aspect of NextGen Solutions. The technology was sound. The market opportunity was real. The team was competent, and this time Victoria had a co-founder who actually knew how to build software. Her previous failures had taught her humility, at least in business if not in family dinners. Against my better judgment perhaps, I'd written a check for $8.5 million. The Series A round closed at $15.2 million total. My investment was the anchor. The other VCs followed my lead. That was 3 years ago. NextGen Solutions had grown exactly as projected. They'd raised a Series B 18 months later, then the Series C she was currently bragging about. The company was valued at $280 million. My original $8.5 million stake was now worth approximately $32 million on paper. Victoria had no idea that more than half of her initial funding, the funding that made everything else possible, came from the sister she called financially clueless. "Earth to Emma," Victoria snapped her fingers in front of my face. "Are you even listening?" I blinked. "Sorry, what?" "I was telling Bradley's parents about my upcoming TechCrunch interview. But I guess that's not interesting to someone whose biggest financial decision is which brand of instant ramen to buy." The table erupted in laughter again. Bradley's mother, a surgeon who'd barely acknowledged my existence all evening, smiled sympathetically at Victoria. "It must be difficult having such different levels of ambition in the family." "You have no idea," Victoria sighed dramatically. "I've been trying to mentor Emma for years, but she just doesn't have the hunger. Some people are builders. Others are just there." "That's not fair, Victoria," my cousin Jennifer interjected weakly. "Emma works hard." "Working hard and working smart are different things, Jenny." Victoria took a long sip of wine. "Emma's been at the same company for a decade. Same position, same salary, same safe little existence. Meanwhile, I've built a company from nothing. We just signed a $12 million contract with a Fortune 100 client last week." "Incredible," Aunt Carol breathed. "You must be so proud of yourself." "I am," Victoria said simply. "I'm proud that I took risks. I'm proud that I believed in myself even when others doubted me." Her eyes flicked to me meaningfully. "I'm proud that I didn't let fear hold me back." My phone buzzed again. This time it was Marcus. "Happy Thanksgiving. Just reviewed NextGen's Q3 financials. Strong performance. Let me know if you want to discuss exit strategies in the new year." I set my phone face down on the table. "You know what Emma's problem is?" Dad said, refilling his wine glass. "She's risk-averse. Always has been. Remember when Victoria wanted to start her first company? Emma refused to help. Because it was a terrible idea," I said quietly. The table went silent. Victoria's eyes narrowed. "Excuse me. Your first company. It was a bad idea. Poor market analysis, no competitive advantage, unrealistic projections. It failed because it deserved to fail." Victoria's face flushed red. "How dare you?" "The second one too," I continued, my voice still calm. "Uncle Richard lost $800,000 because you didn't do proper due diligence. You had passion, but passion doesn't replace planning." Uncle Richard shifted uncomfortably. Victoria looked like she wanted to throw her wine glass at me. "NextGen is different," I added. "You actually did it right this time. Good product, real market need, competent team. That's why it succeeded. Thank you for your expert analysis, Victoria said icily. I'm sure your vast experience in data entry gives you such insight into building tech companies. Victoria, that's enough, Mom said, but she was smiling. Don't be cruel to your sister. I'm not being cruel. I'm being honest. Victoria stood, commanding the room's attention. Emma, I love you, but you need to hear this. You're 32 years old. You're not getting any younger. If you don't start taking your financial future seriously, you're going to wake up at 50 with nothing but a sad 401k and regrets. She's just trying to help, Bradley added, putting his arm around Victoria. Victoria's always been generous with her advice. That's true, Mom agreed. Victoria helped your cousin Michael invest in Bitcoin last year. He made $15,000. Victoria nodded. I could help you too, Emma. I could introduce you to my financial advisor. Get you into some real investments. Maybe even get you a job at NextGen if you're willing to start at the bottom and work your way up. The condescension was so thick I could taste it. That's very generous, I said carefully. It is, Victoria agreed. Because honestly, I worry about you. We all do. You're smart enough, but you just don't have the drive, the ambition, the killer instinct it takes to actually build something meaningful. She gestured around the table. Everyone here has achieved something. Dad built his medical practice. Mom was a partner at her law firm. Uncle Richard owns 3 car dealerships. Even cousin Jennifer just made regional manager. But you're just coasting. Drifting, Dad corrected. She's drifting. Right, drifting. Victoria raised her glass again. So here's my real toast, to Emma. May she finally figure out what the rest of us learned years ago. Playing it safe is the riskiest move of all. To Emma, the table chorused dutifully. I smiled politely, took another sip of water, and opened my phone. I pulled up my encrypted messaging app and typed a single message to Marcus Chin. Dissolve silent partnership in NextGen Solutions. Liquidate all holdings. Begin process immediately. I hit send. 3 seconds later my phone buzzed. Understood. Will initiate tomorrow. This is substantial. Are you certain? I typed back. Completely certain. Then I set my phone down and picked up my fork. Emma, are you even listening? Victoria demanded. I'm listening, I said, cutting into my turkey. You were saying something about killer instinct? 45 minutes later, we were serving dessert when Victoria's phone rang. She glanced at the screen and frowned. It's Richard, she said, referring to her lead investor from Redwood Ventures. I should take this. Probably about the Forbes feature. She stepped into the hallway, phone pressed to her ear. Through the doorway I could see her nodding, smiling. Then her expression changed. What do you mean pulling out? Her voice rose sharply. Richard, it's Thanksgiving. Can this wait until? She fell silent, listening. Her face went pale. That's not. We have contracts. Legal agreements. Her hand was shaking. Richard, we're in the middle of a major product launch. The Series C just closed. This doesn't make any sense. She listened for another moment, then looked straight at me through the doorway. Our eyes met. He knew. I'll call you back, she said quietly, ending the call. Victoria stood frozen in the hallway for a long moment. Then she walked back to the table, moving like someone who'd just been punched. Everything okay, honey? Mom asked, concerned. Victoria didn't answer. She was staring at me with an expression I'd never seen before, confusion mixed with dawning horror. Emma, she said slowly. Do you know someone named E. Monroe? The table went quiet. Can't say the name rings a bell, I said, taking a bite of pumpkin pie. Why? Because apparently, Victoria's voice was barely controlled. E. Monroe is dissolving a $15.2 million partnership with NextGen Solutions. Effective immediately. Dad frowned. What does that mean? It means, Victoria said, her hands gripping the back of her chair, that our largest Series A investor is pulling out. They're invoking the liquidity clause. We have to buy back their shares at current valuation, or they'll force a fire sale of the entire company. But that's... Uncle Richard did some quick mental math. That's over $30 million. $32 million, Victoria corrected, her voice hollow. Which we don't have. The Series C funding is already allocated to product development and market expansion. If we liquidate to buy them out, we'll have to shut down 3 divisions and lay off half our staff. Mom looked confused. But why would they pull out now? You said the company's doing well. It is. Victoria was still staring at me. That's what makes this bizarre. We just had our best quarter ever. Unless. She pulled out her phone with trembling hands, scrolling frantically through something. Her face went from pale to ashen. The investment was made through Redwood Ventures, she said quietly. But the capital came from a private investor affiliated with the firm. Monroe. They joined our Series A 3 years ago. They've never attended a board meeting. Never asked for reports. Just silent money. Who is this person? Bradley demanded. Victoria looked up from her phone, her eyes meeting mine. The wire transfer originated from an account at Morgan Stanley. The same bank Emma uses. Everyone at the table turned to look at me. I took another bite of pie. Emma. Victoria's voice was shaking now. Emma Monroe Harrison. Monroe. You're E. Monroe. The silence was deafening. That's ridiculous, Mom said with a nervous laugh. Emma doesn't have that kind of money. She works in data entry. Financial analysis, I corrected again, setting down my fork. And technically, I'm a senior portfolio manager at Crestview Capital Management. I've been with them for 12 years. Started as an analyst, worked my way up. Dad's face was blank. A portfolio manager? I manage investment portfolios for high-net-worth individuals and institutions. Currently overseeing about $840 million in assets. Victoria's hands were flat on the table, like she needed to steady herself. You were the Series A investor? The entire time. Not the entire investment, I said calmly. Just $8.5 million of the $15.2 million round. Marcus Chin and his partners at Redwood contributed the rest. They brought me the deal. I evaluated it, decided it was solid, and invested. $8.5 million, Dad repeated slowly, like the words didn't make sense. You had $8.5 million? I had $12 million at the time, I said. But I didn't want to put everything into one investment. That would be financially irresponsible. The table was frozen. Nobody was eating. Nobody was drinking. They were all just staring. How? Mom finally whispered. How do you have that kind of money? I invested wisely, I said simply. Started small. Lived below my means. Compounded returns. Real estate, index funds, venture capital. Nothing dramatic. Just consistent, disciplined wealth building over 12 years. I looked at Victoria. When Marcus brought me your Series A pitch, I analyzed it thoroughly. For once, you'd actually built something viable. Good market opportunity, solid team, real product. So I invested. Not as your sister, as E. Monroe, a private investor who saw potential. But why didn't you tell me? Victoria's voice cracked. Because you never asked, I said quietly. You spent 12 years telling me I was financially clueless. That I had no ambition. That I was drifting through life. You never once asked what I actually did for a living. You decided I was a failure, and that was enough for you. So you let me humiliate myself? Tears were forming in Victoria's eyes. No, I said firmly. I let you build a company. I gave you the capital you needed to succeed. I stayed silent so you could take credit for your achievement. Because Victoria, you did build something. NextGen is a good company. You worked hard. The success is yours. Then why are you pulling out? She demanded, her voice rising. Why are you destroying everything I built? I stood up slowly, carefully folding my napkin. Because tonight, I said, my voice still calm, you stood in front of our entire family and called me financially clueless. You mocked my choices. You offered to get me a job at my own investment. You treated me like a charity case while wearing a diamond bracelet I indirectly paid for. I looked around the table at all of them. All of you did. For 12 years, you assumed I was failing because I wasn't loud about my success. Because I didn't drive a Tesla or buy a penthouse or post about my wealth on social media. Emma, Mom started. I'm not angry, I interrupted. I'm just done. Done being your cautionary tale. Done being the person you pity. Done funding the illusion that I'm somehow less than all of you. Victoria was openly crying now. You're going to bankrupt my company because your feelings were hurt? No, I said. I'm liquidating an investment that's no longer aligned with my interests. It's not personal. It's business. You taught me that. My phone buzzed. I glanced at it. Marcus. First round of buyers interested. Goldman Sachs, Sequoia and 2 others. Should have term sheets by Monday. We'll get you full value. The good news, I said to Victoria, is that there's already interest from other investors. Marcus is fielding calls. You'll probably find replacement capital within a week or 2. The company won't fold. You'll just have to explain to your new investors why your original backer pulled out. What do I tell them? She whispered. Tell them the truth, I said, picking up my purse. That Ethan Monroe decided to reallocate capital to other opportunities. It happens all the time in venture investing. I walked toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, Victoria, I am proud of what you built. NextGen really is a good company. You'll be fine. You always are. Emma, please, Dad said, standing up. Let's talk about this. There's nothing to talk about, I said. I'm executing a standard liquidation clause in my investment agreement. It's all legal. All documented. Marcus will handle the details. But we're family, Mom said desperately. Exactly, I replied. We're family. And family should support family. That's what you told me tonight, remember? When you said I should help Victoria. I smiled. I did help her. For 3 years I was her silent partner. Her safety net. Her secret weapon. And she never knew it because knowing it would have shattered the story you all tell about me. I opened the door. Emma, Victoria called out. What happens now? I turned back one last time. Now, I said. Now you keep building your empire. And I'll keep building mine. The difference is I don't need to announce mine at Thanksgiving dinner to know it's real. I walked out into the November night, leaving my family sitting in stunned silence around a table full of cold turkey and unanswered questions. Epilogue 30 days later. The Forbes article about Victoria came out 3 weeks after Thanksgiving. It was shorter than she'd hoped, just half a page in the 30 under 30 feature. The reporter had somehow gotten wind of the investor shakeup and mentioned it briefly. NextGen Solutions recently underwent a restructuring of its Series A investors, though CEO Harrison remains optimistic about the company's trajectory. Sequoia ended up leading the buyout of my shares. They paid $33.4 million, higher than the liquidation value because they saw what I'd seen 3 years ago. NextGen was fundamentally sound. Victoria kept the company running. She laid off 40 employees and delayed the European expansion, but the core business survived. She'd learned from this just like she'd learned from her earlier failures. That was Victoria's gift, resilience. I rolled my $33.4 million into 3 new investments. A biotech startup working on cancer diagnostics, a clean energy company developing better batteries, and a majority stake in a small but growing asset management firm. Mom called twice. I didn't answer. Dad sent an email with the subject line, "We need to talk." I archived it. Victoria sent a text 3 weeks after Thanksgiving. "I'm sorry. I was wrong about you. About everything." I read it. Didn't reply. The thing about being underestimated is that it only works if you let it. For 12 years I'd let my family see what they wanted to see. I'd kept my head down, my mouth shut, my success private. But there's a difference between being humble and being invisible. I'd been invisible by choice, and that choice had served me well. Kept me focused. Kept me disciplined. Kept me learning while others were busy performing. But the performance had to end sometime. Now my family knew the truth. Maybe they'd learn from it. Maybe they wouldn't. Either way, it wasn't my problem anymore. I had empires to build. Quietly.